They say even a fierce tiger won't eat its cubs. But this couple abandoned their own son just to protect their reputation. 20 years later, with their fame gone and their fortune lost, they are about to realize a haunting truth. The blind child they threw away is now the only one who can save them.
Welcome to Vital Life Stories, where we explore the deep consequences of our choices and the undeniable truth of karma. 20 years ago, a wealthy couple lived in a grand mansion, believing that their perfect life demanded a perfect child. They had everything money could buy, but their hearts were completely obsessed with maintaining a flawless image in high society. However, fate delivered a harsh reality when their biological son was born with a highly visible birthmark on his face. Instead of feeling unconditional love, the parents only felt deep shame when they looked at their innocent newborn baby boy. They secretly decided that this child would completely ruin their pristine reputation and their carefully crafted image of absolute perfection. In a moment of extreme cruelty, they chose to abandon their own flesh and blood at a very distant orphanage. To replace him, they immediately adopted a completely flawless baby boy who looked exactly like a beautiful little porcelain doll. The parents celebrated their new perfect family, while their real son cried alone in a cold and dark orphanage crib. They showered the adopted child with endless expensive gifts and completely ignored the essential values of kindness and basic empathy. Meanwhile, the biological son grew up in poverty, but he developed a remarkably strong spirit and a deeply compassionate heart. The orphanage caretakers taught him that true beauty always comes from within, and hard work will eventually bring great success. As the years quickly passed, the biological son studied relentlessly under the dim light of the small orphanage library room. He faced constant bullying because of his facial mark, but he never let those cruel words destroy his bright spirit. He transformed his deep pain into massive motivation, eventually earning a full scholarship to a very prestigious national business university. On the other side of town, the adopted son grew into an extremely arrogant teenager who demanded absolute, total obedience. He openly disrespected his wealthy parents, knowing they would always forgive him, because of his remarkably handsome and perfect face. The aging parents slowly began to realize that they had successfully raised a beautiful monster, completely devoid of any love. The adopted sons started gambling heavily and wasting their massive fortune on reckless parties and extremely expensive luxury sports cars. Every time they tried to discipline him, he would aggressively threaten to leave them totally alone in their huge mansion. The biological son graduated at the top of his class and immediately launched a highly successful technology software company business. His unique life perspective and brilliant mind allowed him to quickly become a highly respected billionaire in the corporate world. Despite his massive wealth, he remained extremely humble and frequently donated large sums of money to his old childhood orphanage. He never forgot the deep pain of abandonment, but he chose to heal his broken heart through kindness and charity. He secretly hired a private investigator to finally track down the wealthy parents who had heartlessly thrown him away forever. The investigator quickly discovered that the biological parents were now facing complete financial ruin because of their terrible adopted son. The adopted son had secretly forged their signatures and completely transferred all their remaining assets into his own bank account. In a cruel twist of fate, the perfect son violently kicked his aging parents out of their own beautiful mansion. The elderly couple stood crying on the cold street, realizing their obsession with superficial perfection had destroyed their entire lives. They were forced to sleep on dirty cardboard boxes, while their adopted son hosted wild parties inside their old home. The biological son watched from a distance, feeling a complex mixture of deep sadness and undeniable justice for their actions. he decided to execute a brilliant plan to completely buy back the massive mansion from his incredibly foolish adopted brother. Through a series of aggressive corporate moves, he successfully bankrupted the arrogant adopted son and legally seized the entire property. The adopted son was finally left with absolutely nothing and ran away into the dark city, never to be seen. Now the biological son stood inside the grand hallway of the beautiful house that should have been his childhood home. Meanwhile, the desperate elderly parents were searching everywhere for any kind of menial labor just to buy some basic food. They saw an advertisement for a cleaning position at their old mansion and decided to apply, despite their deep shame. The biological son wore a mask and disguised his voice to personally interview the miserable people who once abandoned him. He intentionally acted like an incredibly harsh and demanding employer to test their true character and see their real remorse. He ordered them to scrub the dirty floors on their fragile knees and clean the massive garden without any breaks. Surprisingly, the old couple did not complain at all and simply worked quietly, with tears falling down their wrinkled faces. The father gently helped his exhausted wife wipe her sweating forehead, showing a genuine tenderness they never had before today. The biological son watched them through the security cameras, realizing that deep suffering had finally taught them some real humility. He purposefully dropped a valuable vase near the mother and angrily blamed her for being completely useless and terribly clumsy. Instead of arguing back, the mother immediately apologized and frantically tried to clean up the sharp broken glass pieces herself. She cut her fragile hand, but continued working, while whispering that she completely deserved all the bad luck in life. The father hugged her tightly and cried, saying their current misery was a direct punishment for abandoning their real son. Hearing their genuine confession of profound guilt, the biological son felt a massive wave of intense emotion hit his chest. He finally realized that they had truly changed, and the heavy burden of karma had already completely crushed their souls. He slowly walked down the grand staircase, holding a small golden box that contained his original hospital birth certificate document. The elderly couple looked up at the wealthy owner, trembling in fear, as they expected to be fired and punished. The young billionaire gently removed his mask, revealing the very distinct facial birthmark that they had completely despised long ago. The mother instantly recognized the unique mark and gasped loudly as she collapsed onto the cold marble floor in shock. The father stared in total disbelief as he finally realized that his wealthy boss was actually his discarded biological son. The son looked at them with calm eyes and asked if they still thought his face was too horribly imperfect. The mother crawled toward his expensive shoes, crying hysterically and begging for his forgiveness for her completely unforgivable past actions. The father bowed his head in deep shame, admitting that they were the ones who were truly defective and ugly. They confessed that their obsession with a perfect image had blinded them to the real beautiful meaning of unconditional family. The son gently helped his weeping mother stand up and told her that he had already forgiven them long ago. He explained that holding on to deep anger would only poison his own successful life and destroy his very valuable peace. However, he firmly stated that they could never be a normal family because trust takes a whole lifetime to rebuild. He offered them a small, comfortable cottage on the massive estate where they could live peacefully for their remaining years. They would never be homeless again, but they would always live with the painful memory of their incredibly foolish choices. The elderly parents hugged each other tightly, feeling completely overwhelmed by the profound mercy of the son they threw away. They finally understood that true human perfection is never found in physical appearances, but rather in a deeply forgiving heart. The universe always finds a fascinating way to balance the scales of justice and teach us the hardest life lessons. Thank you for watching Vital Life Stories, where we always believe that your true character is your most valuable asset.